Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 31 of The Loud House, Vantastic Voyage. We begin this segment with Rita and Vanzilla, and the Loud siblings are all outside of Vanzilla because they have to push it in order to move the vehicle because it broke down. Well, 10 of the siblings are pushing Vanzilla anyway. Lola's the only one who's not. She's standing on top of the van as if she were in a parade, which annoys the other siblings. And they also express their annoyance at how Vanzilla broke down again and hoping to get a new van. Rita agrees with them, but she says that Lynn Sr. is the only one who would hold out on the possibility of getting a new van. She repeats what was mentioned back in the sweet spot, how Lynn Sr. originally acquired Vanzilla from his dad, Grandpa Loud. And we even get to see an image of Grandpa Loud. He looks like an elderly hippie. And Grandpa Loud acquired the van from his own dad, Lynn Sr.'s grandpa, so great-grandpa Loud, and we get to see an image of him too. He looks like the fusion between Lynn Sr. and the Fonz. Now it's just a question of if it's the fusion dance or the Patara earrings. So, bottom line is, Lynn Sr. has a lot of sentimental value for Vanzilla, and by the time they eventually get back home, Rita admits she may have to go somewhere else later, so she may need the kids' help pushing Vanzilla there, which is the straw that broke the camel's back for the Loud siblings. Oh, and Lola, she hit a tree branch while standing on Vanzilla a few blocks away, so she had to walk the rest of the way home from that point. But when thinking of how they can convince their dad to get a new van, Lincoln suggests they try the subliminal messaging approach. And that's what they do. They try to subliminally put the idea of a new van in Lynn Sr.'s head, and it works. Lynn Sr. goes out and gets a new van. But we soon see that he's very possessive about the new van. He makes the rest of his family go through a long and thorough inspection that takes until the sun's down before he even lets them in the van. And the ride he takes them on is not much of a ride. It's just backing up and then pulling forward in the driveway for a few seconds. We also find out that he refuses to let Rita or Lori drive the new van, which he now has given the name Veronica. And he refuses to drive any of his family members anywhere they need to go or want to go with Veronica. He's pretty much keeping Veronica all to himself. Oh, and he joined a new club, the Royal Woods Minivan Society, with 3 other members who are also family men, but like Lynn Sr., they gave names to their vans and they don't want their family members in the vans. Only one of the 3 members' names is said out loud, and that's Kotaro, voiced by Phil Lamar. The other 2's names are revealed in the credits, and they are Ted, voiced by Jim Misekamin, and Sergey, voiced by Fred Tatsoyer. He even uses the same voice he uses for Rocksteady, aka Ivan Sterenko, in the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. So, with Lynn Sr. unwilling to let any of his family members in Veronica or to ride in Veronica, Lori comes up with a plan so she and Lenny can go wherever they want to go. What this plan is, Lori and Lenny pretend to want to buy a new car, but they insist that they must take a test drive to ensure that they want to buy the car. So, with the employee Steve, voiced by Phil Lamar as well, they go wherever they want to go. Like, they go to the Bourbon Burger, and they go to the mall, for example, and they assure Steve that this is part of the test. Like, we have to test the cup holders, or we have to test the trunk. And they get stuff for Steve there, too, so he can be appeased or convinced that this is part of the test. And, well, he's having fun. As for the rest of the Loud family, they decide they'd rather have Vanzilla back, thinking that at least they could be themselves in Vanzilla. So they try the subliminal approach to convince Lynn Sr. to reclaim Vanzilla, but none of that works. And Lynn Sr. even catches them talking about how they tried to convince him to get rid of Veronica. And they assure him they don't have a problem with Veronica. They don't like how he's acting, though. But Lynn Sr. tries to shame them for trying to break him and Veronica up. And he tells this to his fellow club members, and they agree that he should stand his ground. But when they see another man in a van with his own family having a fun time, this convinces the three other members besides Lynn Sr. to return the new vans and get their old ones back and spend time with their family. Lynn Sr. stands his ground, though, until the family that they saw that kind of convinced the other members to get their old vans back. When the family call him like some weirdo or lonely weirdo, that's what convinces Lynn Sr. to head back home, apologize to his family, and allow them to ride Veronica so they can return Veronica to get Vanzilla back. But Vanzilla was sold to the junkyard to be destroyed for scraps. And it's at that point when Lori and Lenny return with Steve, and Steve's actually more than willing to give him another test drive to the junkyard because he had so much fun with Lori and Lenny. They make it to the junkyard, and with quick thinking on Lana's part, they're able to stop the compactor from destroying Vanzilla. And Lynn Sr. buys Vanzilla back and saying, once again reaffirming how he has sentimental value for Vanzilla. So the segment ends with Lynn Sr. and Rita in Vanzilla. The siblings are pushing Vanzilla, and Steve drives by. Now, this segment, while sweet and sour, some would argue could be considered a Lynn Sr. and Rita focused segment. This one is more clearly, you could definitely say this one more clearly had Lynn Sr. in the spotlight. And, well, it did show us a little more about his attachment to Vanzilla, which we saw or heard about back in the Sweet Spot. And it was cool. We actually got to see Grandpa Loud and Great Grandpa Loud, even if it was just brief images of them. We got to see more family members of the Loud family. I am hopeful that we might get to see, maybe Grandpa Loud might show up at least Grandpa Loud, maybe he'll show up in a future segment or episode. Keep my fingers crossed. It would be nice to get to know Lynn Sr.'s side of the family a little more, since we got to see some of Rita's side of the family through Albert, the maternal grandpa of the Loud siblings, and Ruth, the Loud siblings' great aunt, Rita's aunt. So I'd like to see more of, Lynn Sr.'s side of the family would be nice. And I did like how the B plot, how it was able to connect with the A plot. It kickstarted because of Lynn Sr. being possessive of Veronica, with Lori and Lenny having fun with Steve. And then it came back when Steve having fun with Lori and Lenny is what convinced him to allow him to have another test drive. So that was fun, and I liked Steve. He was a fun character. And it was cool we got to see those other members of the Royal Woods Minivan Society, because it kind of expands Lynn Sr.'s friends, or like his other peers. So I thought that was a nice touch. And we do get to see at least two of them return in one of them returns in a prevalent role. The other one appears in a brief scene, and actually I think the third one actually has a cameo appearance. So it's not the last we see of them, and at least two of them we see still hang out with Lynn Sr. in some capacity. So it was a nice touch to see the parents' friends. And while Lynn Sr. was the focus, we did get to meet one of Rita's co-workers, someone named Brandon. Maybe we'll get to see more of him in the future. Who knows? And as for what else we can say, well, those were what I thought were some of the good parts about the segment. I did have some mixed thoughts about it. Like, I actually didn't mind how Lynn Sr. acted with, like, the lesson about Lynn Sr. being a little too possessive about Veronica, but learning the error of his ways. That wasn't an issue for me. The problem I had was more the resolution was, or to be more specific, what I didn't really like was how the rest of the family were convinced they had to get Vanzilla back because they could be themselves in Vanzilla, and that Lynn Sr. was convinced that he had to return Veronica and had to get Vanzilla back because at best that comes off as honor before reason. At worst, that comes off as all of them holding the idiot ball because they really didn't need to get rid of Veronica, and they didn't really need to get Vanzilla back. They could have just kept Veronica, but just, Lynn Sr. could have just learned to be less possessive of Veronica. Because, the whole point of them wanting to get a new van was a valid point because Vanzilla was not a very reliable vehicle anymore. And that's to be fair. Vanzilla's been in use for such a long time that eventually vehicles wear out over time. So them wanting to get a new van was not a bad thing. The problem was more Lynn Sr. being too possessive. Even the Loud siblings point this out to him when they're expressing their frustration. So, yeah, I understand the sentimental value, but really, it was more pragmatic to just keep Veronica and just not be so possessive about Veronica. Like, I would have preferred if they did the approach that happened in the King of the Hill episode, Chasing Bobby. Hank had a lot of sentimental value for his truck in that episode, and it actually ended up being destroyed when a train crashed into it at one point when it broke down. But Hank was able to keep one of the pieces of his old truck, and he added it into his new truck, so it was like a part of his old truck still lived on. I think I would have preferred that approach. Like, maybe they'd be too late to save Vanzilla, but they managed to find a piece of Vanzilla that's left and add it to Veronica, so Vanzilla lives on, in a sense. Because, like, I know some people might have thought that maybe they saved Vanzilla and went back to it because keep the status quo the same, and while it's true Loud House is mostly an episodic series, it still does have some serialized aspects to it, and sometimes these serialized aspects do dramatically change the status quo. The second full episode of the series, which happens halfway through season 2, actually does shake up the status quo quite a bit. So I think them getting a new van wouldn't have changed the status quo quite as dramatically as what's going to happen in the second full episode. So that's why I can't help but feel that it sort of just seemed like the Loud family held the idiot ball just to justify getting Vanzilla back, even though it was really in their best interest to keep the much more efficient Veronica, just have Lynn Sr. not be so possessive of Veronica. Now, despite my grievances with this segment, I still prefer it over the A segment. And this one wasn't necessarily bad. It was just, again, it had its good points. It executed some things very well, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like the characters just held the idiot ball to keep the status quo, even though the show has changed the status quo in the past. It's going to change it in future segments and episodes. So what harm was there in changing the status quo by getting a new vehicle? There you have it. I still favored this segment over the A segment, though, despite that. And there you go. We've now discussed both segments of episode 31 on this channel. Take care, and until next time.